Hey guys, Sayonel here. In this video, I wanted to talk a little bit about breastfeeding. This is a topic that's still going on today, and I breastfeed right now. And so I felt like, giving my point of view as far as breastfeeding goes, things that people say about breastfeeding, like should you use a cover, should you not use a cover, and people linking breastfeeding to child molestation. Yeah. So this is from a breastfeeding mother's point of view. So growing up, I did not grow up around anybody that did breastfeed. My mom didn't. None of my aunts did. Cousins, friends. I really didn't know anybody. My grandmother did, but she never really talked about it. So I was never exposed to actual breastfeeding. I grew up thinking that breastfeeding was disgusting. That your boobs, your nipples, that if you get breastfeeding turns you on. That's how society made me feel about it, and that it's wrong. It's just wrong. It wasn't until I got pregnant that I had decided that I wanted to breastfeed. Up until that point, I assumed I would bottle feed, but the moment I got pregnant, I had made a decision for myself to breastfeed. That was my goal. And nothing was going to get in the way of that goal. And I had very supportive family. My mom was the biggest support on it. She stood up for me when people said that, talked down upon it. And I even had all of my friends were supportive. I had a couple of family members that weren't. But besides that, I had a huge support system. And that helped so much. When I went to the hospital and actually gave birth, when I tried to breastfeed, the nurses never discouraged me. They were there to hear my little complaints because she wouldn't latch on, and I felt like I was a terrible mother. All of my knowledge came from YouTube, uh, articles, stuff that I found up online. That was most of my knowledge of what breastfeeding was. I actually ended up going to a support group the month before my daughter was born. So again, I really didn't have any idea what exactly how breastfeeding was going to happen, like all the gritty details, until I had it, until I started doing it myself. When I first finally got my daughter to latch on to breastfeed, she would only latch on to one breast, onto my left, not my right. I was I don't think I was really prepared for the pain that was about to happen. And most women say that they do have pain, like their nipples bleed. Mine just felt like they were being chewed off by a piranha. Through all the pain, through everything, I think it was worth it. And going into breastfeeding, when I actually, after she was born and I sat out to actually, breastfeed out in public and stuff like that, here's where all these things come in. Okay, first thing, cover versus no cover. I used a cover at first. I'm not going to lie, I did. I was an excessive milk producer. Like, I would produce anywhere after she ate. I would pump anywhere between 24 and 50 ounces a week extra. That is quite a milk factory. Uh, it was hilarious when my daughter would latch on and then my other breast would start leaking and you'd see a stream of milk just shooting out in every direction. I laughed at it, but I was home. I would be in the shower just laughing at myself because both boobs would spontaneously start leaking everywhere. Now, that is why I used a blanket, because I was afraid of squirting somebody. Now, I can see why people would be also, concerned about that because of women like me that did overly produce milk. Like I said, I shot in every direction. If she popped off in the middle of a letdown, it would shoot her in the face. It might shoot her off. It might go off into the corner. And I actually shot my mom a couple of times while she sat next to me. So there is that. Now, something that you need to know about blankets is that some babies don't really like the covers. Mine didn't. She fought me tooth and nail all the time every time I used it. And it was almost, honestly, more of a hassle than anything. And the fact that my daughter didn't have a perfect latch, that really also determined why I used a blanket at first, because she would make a fuss, me trying to get her to latch on to the breast that she would latch on. And it caused a bad scene. And I just didn't want people sitting there with me, my boob hanging out, trying to get her to eat. So that is why I used a blanket. Now, after about 4 or 5 months, I got rid of the blanket. She hated it. My milk had started to even out, and I wasn't being an overproducing milk factory. So I wasn't, every time she latched off, I wouldn't shoot somebody that was sitting next to me, or I wouldn't spontaneously leak everywhere. Since breastfeeding out in public, I've never personally had anybody say anything mean to me. I've had encouraging words. I had people congratulate me, tell me how awesome I'm doing. And I've also had people that didn't even know I was breastfeeding. I'd be sitting there talking to them, already feeding her at this point. And they'd be like, "Oh, is she asleep?" No. And this is with a breastfeeding shirt. So it just left a little area just for my nipple to come out, pretty much. So nobody knew. And I didn't even use a blanket. Now, people saying, "Well, I don't want to see your floppy tit hanging out." For one, you don't see more on a breastfeeding mother than you would, say, somebody at the beach. So why does it matter that this woman is breastfeeding out in public? Just because she has a child attached to it, it's not sexy anymore? I mean, that's what boobs are for. Boobs are not sex organs, which some people try to defend, saying that breasts are sex organs, therefore they shouldn't be seen in public. Well, men have breasts, men have nipples, men actually have the ability to lactate, just like women do. They just don't produce the hormone that women do after giving birth and, going through pregnancy and giving birth. That's why women lactate. When I was born, I lactated. So there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, they're just boobs. A woman that has survived breast cancer, and she doesn't need to have breasts to conceive and have a child. So why do we associate breast with sexual organs? Now, saying that it's sexual, as we do have, well, most women do have sexual stimulation in their nipples, and it does feel good. But even though it's used for sex, don't people use their mouths for sex, their hands? So what? I don't want to, you can't see people's mouths anymore? Or what about our hands? Do we have to cover them from now on because we can use them for sex? And some people like having their feet touched, or their hair pulled, or their ears licked, their neck kissed. So do we have to cover ourselves head to toe because any part of our body could be used for sex? So guys like to look at them, and some ladies like to look at them. Doesn't mean that they're meant for sex, because biologically they're not. They're meant to feed our young. And then I've seen people post how they compare a man urinating in public to a woman breastfeeding in public. Again, breasts are not sex organs. They never have been. They are meant to feed our young. Now, if you had compared a man urinating in public to a woman urinating in public, that would make sense, because urethra. But saying that a woman breastfeeding in public is the same as a man urinating in public, for one, you don't feed a baby by peeing in its mouth. A woman's breasts are meant to feed their baby. A man's penis is not meant to feed the baby. So having that comparison makes absolutely no sense. It doesn't make any sense. For one, breast milk has no bacteria in it. It's food. It's no different than cow's milk, essentially. It produces antibodies that the baby needs. But a man urinating in public, how that's not sanitary. That is not sanitary at all. Urine is a waste product, not food. Breasts produce milk, which is food. Penis produce, well, I mean, depending on what you're doing, urinating in public. That's a wasteful product. That has nothing, that is not feeding anybody except maybe bugs or the ground, dirt. Some people say, well, breastfeeding out in public is just as natural as urinating in public. Again, having a bowel movement or urinating in public has nothing to do with breastfeeding. Food, excrement, and waste. Food, excrement, and waste. There's no comparison. You can't compare the two. Now, speaking of, breast milk being food, when I was talking about how I used to, squirt and lactate everywhere if she popped off, I can see how people could say, yes, use a blanket because I don't want to get shot, with someone's milk. I can completely understand that. It's essentially the same as somebody pouring their food on you or spilling their food on you. I wouldn't want that either, which is why I did use a blanket in the beginning. So I can see that as a real concern. But to sit there and say that it's disgusting, please just be aware that breast milk has nothing in it that's going to make you sick or your kids sick. It's food. That is all it is. It's food. And to say that it's okay for a human to drink cow's milk but not, human milk, which is what we're meant to drink, how is that unnatural? How is it unnatural to breastfeed over giving your child cow's milk? It's not. It makes no sense. Just because we grew up in a society where milk, cow's milk is the norm for us to drink, and that human milk is somehow disgusting. No, I just no. Just recently, I actually read a post where a girl said that she associated breastfeeding long term, like past, I guess, 1 or 2 years, leads to child molestation. That, I mean, she said, I don't mean to offend anybody. Really? Seriously, you're offending all the people that have been molested as children, as well as mothers that do breastfeed. Like I said earlier, I thought that, when you breastfeed, that some women would probably get off on it. After I started breastfeeding, let me tell you, there was none. There was no. I can't even begin to describe how it feels. It was more of tugging around it. Not once did I really feel her on like the actual nipple. It was just around, like the sensation of pulling her on the areola around it. I never once felt pleasure from it. And people that think that women are going, "Oh yeah, suck my nipple again. Get that milk out." We don't think that. We don't, I mean, there are some perverts out there that would, I guess. I mean, my sister was telling me about some crazy woman that apparently took sexual pictures of her breastfeeding her son and doing stuff, and that is a sicko. That's not all breastfeeding moms. And to say that breastfeeding leads to child molestation, how is that proven? Tell me how that is proven. How are you sexually abusing your child just because you're letting them eat from your breast longer than a year or two? It's the mother's decision and the baby's decision, the child's decision when to wean. I know somebody whose daughter self-weaned at 2 years old. Does that make her a pervert because she waited until she was 2? No. If she wanted to wait until she was 5 years old, whose business is it other than the mother's and the child's? Now, if there's bullying going on, I think we need to teach our kids what breasts are for so that there is no bullying to be had. Who really cares if you breastfed from your mother for, I don't know, 5 years? Nobody should care because it's food. From what I've been reading up online, as well as studies that have been done, it is recommended that a child be breastfed up to 2 years old because they do get all those antibodies, they get all their vitamins, stuff that helps them grow physically, with their brain, mentally, stuff like that. And to say that it's disgusting because a 2-year-old can ask for it and saying you need to pop that baby off the moment they can ask for it, why is it your business? Why is it anybody's business other than the mother's and the child's? It should be no one's business. And yes, there are people that post it online. People say that they just want attention. I see it as more of they're just trying to bring awareness. Now, if they post excessively, by excessively, I mean I take a lot of I take a lot of breastfeeding pictures. Not for anybody. I've only ever posted one online on Facebook, and you couldn't see anything at all. I mean, my daughter was covering me up pretty well. But I do it because I want to remember that moment. I do it at angles as if it was my face looking down because I always want to remember exactly how she looked when I looked down at her and she would look up at me and smile while she's nursing and make my heart melt all the time. I'd never understood why women had to leave wherever they were at to go breastfeed because it offended somebody. Everybody says it. It's called look away. Like this. Once again, if there was a breastfeeding mother right there, instead of staring at her and going, oh, that's disgusting. Why would you do that? You know what you could do? Just look away. It's honestly, it's not hard. If it offends you, look it away. Most states, at least in the US that I know of, don't know about anywhere else, it is legal for a woman to breastfeed in public. Please learn your laws. It is completely legal. It is illegal to ask a breastfeeding mother to leave the vicinity, whether it be a restaurant, store, whatever. It is illegal and you can be charged, or if not, get in trouble for it. Like I said, I've never had that experience, and I feel horrified for the people that have had that experience because that was my biggest fear. My biggest fear was nursing in public and having somebody tell me how disgusting I am and telling me that, I need to go home, I need to go to the bathroom. Why? And I always wondered, why would a baby want to eat in the bathroom? Like, why are you so offended by a baby eating in public? If you're offended by somebody eating in public, I guess you should put a blanket over your own head. I think everybody should put a blanket over their head to eat, to understand what a baby goes through. And I never really understood why people tell women to go to the bathroom to feed their babies. If you don't want to eat in the bathroom, why would a baby want to eat in the bathroom? It's unsanitary. And I've only ever nursed in the bathroom once, and that was because I was at Macy's and there was nowhere else to sit. And they did have comfortable chairs in the bathroom. But I had a very uncomfortable experience that one and only time, and I will never do it again. That story is for a different time because it wasn't about breastfeeding. No, it was about transgenders using the bathrooms and me wanting to give my honest opinion to this woman that was that not really so politely asked me this question. So since then, I have never used the restroom at all to feed my child. I don't think women should. If a woman wants to, that's fine. But to be forced to do it, that's what's wrong with you? Like, do you want to eat in the bathroom? Why make your baby eat in the bathroom or someone else's baby eat in the bathroom? Because it offends your eyes. If everyone could, tell people to leave just because it offended them, everybody would be in an uproar about it. Oh, you're too fat? You offend me. Leave. Oh, you're too skinny? You offend me. Leave. Oh, you're ugly. You should leave. I mean, nobody says that to other people, so why would you tell a breastfeeding mother to leave the vicinity just because you don't agree with it and that you think it's disgusting? Now, speaking of, not agreeing with it and that's disgusting, children. Do you think women should breastfeed in front of children? I think you should. I've done it a couple times, not blatantly. Like the first time I had the opportunity to do it, it was in the middle. I was at some pottery place, and I could have done it, but I decided not to because it was the kid's birthday party, and I didn't really feel comfortable having this kid because there was a bunch of kids running around asking their mom what I'm doing. So that was the one time I was like, I just need to go out and somewhere else in the mall, which I did. I just went out and there was chairs out in the mall area and sat there and breastfed while my husband stayed with all of our pottery that we were making for Christmas, which was little footprints on this plaque that we were doing, and she was screaming her head off. It was horrible. That was the only time I did not feel comfortable breastfeeding in public just because it was a birthday party. But I do think kids should know what breastfeeding is and be told and explained that breasts are meant to feed babies. That they only sexualize breasts because they're told to sexualize breasts through media, even parenting, where, going to Hooters and staring at their breast, as a male, and you're staring at their breast and saying, something about their, nice about their boobs. If your kids are with you, they're going to associate that as, breasts should be sexualized. And the only way we're going to desexualize them and normalize them is by allowing women to breastfeed in public. At least now, here in Kentucky, I really don't know about all the other states. It is legal for a woman to walk around topless if she wants to. It's not considered indecent exposure. I hope I'm not wrong on that. I remember reading somewhere that it is completely legal for a woman to walk around topless. I don't know if I would ever do it just to do it because my breasts are, I don't know, they're uncomfortable when I don't wear a bra. Like running is it's impossible. I have to hold them. I do. But running is impossible for me. But to sit there and say that all women have to wear bras, all women have to keep their shirts on, or they're a whore, how does, again, men have breasts. Why don't they have to wear shirts? Why aren't they considered whores for taking their shirt off? I mean, double standard much. Then there was talk of staring while a woman breastfeeds. Is it acceptable? Is it not acceptable? My thing is, why do you need to stare? I mean, yes, the occasional glance is fine. And people sit there and try to defend saying, if you take your boob out in public, be prepared for people to stare because you're asking for it. Actually, I'm not asking for it. I'm not even thinking about it. All I want to do is feed my baby, whether it be in a restaurant or at some type of public setting, because would you rather have a baby screaming its head off or a quiet baby? I mean, as a breastfeeding mother, I'm not really asking for anybody to look at me while I'm breastfeeding. I don't care for someone to take the occasional glance at me, but to blatantly stare, that's when it becomes a problem. Nobody's asking, a breastfeeding woman isn't thinking, I think I need to find a way to get my boob out today. I hope my baby's hungry. No, we don't. And to also sit there and say, well, if you're going out in public, why don't you take a bottle with you? A pre-made bottle. My baby, if there are women that have babies like mine, she does not take bottles at all. She hates the fake nipples. She spits those out. She doesn't even take a pacifier. She won't take a pacifier. So why am I going to force her to take a bottle when I'm right there with the milk factory hanging on my chest? I just feed her right then and there. And to tell a woman, well, you should know that your baby's going to get hungry, so prepare bottles and whatnot before you come out, or feed your baby before you leave. For one, a woman doesn't always know when the baby's going to be hungry. Mine would become hungry anywhere between an hour to every 2 hours. Sometimes she'll get fussy and want it earlier because she's upset, stuff like that. And telling a mother that's breastfeeding not to go out in public just because she has a hungry baby because it offends you, really? It offends you? And then saying that she's being selfish. I think the selfish one is the person that's telling the breastfeeding mother to not to make, but to starve her child to make you happy. Wouldn't that be, hypocritical because you're being selfish as well? My mom was one of my big support systems. I was bottle fed, so I don't want to put down, women that do bottle feed their babies because, you know, formula is a good substitute for women that either can't breastfeed or that don't want to breastfeed. I personally think that you should breastfeed if you can because it does provide a lot of nutrients and stuff for your baby. But if you don't want to, there's nothing wrong with that. There's absolutely nothing wrong. It's your choice. You shouldn't be bullied into thinking that you should breastfeed or that you shouldn't breastfeed. Because again, ultimately it's what you think is good for both you and the baby. There is good side effects for the mom as well as good for the baby. There is no downside for the baby, but there are some downsides for the mom, like possible breast drooping, pain, 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 pain. That was the number one for me. But on the bright side, you do have that bonding. It is that closeness. You lose weight faster because the baby takes, I was told from a lactation consultant, the baby can take up to 500 calories per day. So yeah, you can eat your cupcake or your cookies. The one thing I really don't understand is why people are so offended by it. We know what they're for. People tried to justify it saying that we are not cavemen anymore, or we're not. I mean, we have technology for formula, so why would you go through all that? But formula is, like I said, it is a good substitute, but it can never really mimic the real thing. It's like powdered eggs. Powdered eggs are a good substitute, but is it the real thing? Is it real eggs? No. So you really can't say that formula that every woman should use formula because we do have the technology for it. Yes, we have the technology for it, but we also have the choice whether we want to do it or not. And I do have to say, I don't regret my decision. If I could breastfeed my daughter from the beginning, I would go through all the heartache, the pain, me crying when I had postpartum and getting depressed because she wouldn't latch on and then thinking the world was falling apart. I would go through all of it again because I do. I love my daughter and I love having this bonding experience with her. I wouldn't change that for anything in the world. And no amount of somebody criticizing me, telling me that I'm disgusting or that what I'm doing is unnatural and I should keep it at home. It's a bonding experience just between mom and baby. Let me tell you one thing, eating out in public or just going out in public in general, I can still carry on a conversation and feed my child at the same time. Yes, it is a bonding experience, but it's also just food. It's just eating. And I don't really understand why people think that it is meant to only be a bonding experience between mother and child. My child knows that I love her, and in the beginning, I did love looking into her eyes and watching her eat and having that feeling that I am supplying all of her nutrition, all of her food for her. But to sit there and expect me to always look at her every time that she eats I would get nothing done. Nothing would get done. I did for a while. I would clean while I nursed, cooked while I nursed. Um, I would do random things around the house, cleaning, cooking, like I said earlier, as well as watching TV, playing video games, reading books. I did that all while nursing. I even raided in World of Warcraft while nursing. I found ways. I found a way. Yes, it is a personal experience, but again, it's just providing nutrition for your baby. It depending on how long you want to nurse. Right now, my goal was a year, and a year is coming up in like 2 weeks. So that has me a little depressed because I'm not ready for her to be a year old. But besides that, once I reach a year, I think I want to plan to go into 2 years. There is no sign of her letting up on breastfeeding. She refuses food right now. I mean, it's pretty bad. She won't eat. She won't eat baby food almost at all. She will once in a while, but it's only a little bit. So I know there is no sign of letting up. And so I'm pretty sure she's going to nurse to 2 years old. After two, I would like to wean her off. But again, that's what I want to do. Not because society says that after so many years it's disgusting. It's because it's what I want to do. Now, if I have another baby, which I'm not, but if I do while she's still nursing, I really don't care for her to continue nursing if she wants to past 2 years old. But my goal is to 2 years old. As far as shaming goes, you shouldn't shame a woman for breastfeeding. You shouldn't shame a woman for wanting to formula feed. You shouldn't shame her because if a woman breastfeeds and she wants to breastfeed past 3 months old, 6 months old, a year, 2 years, why should you shame her because she wants to breastfeed up to 5 years? I mean, if that's her and her child's decision, why can't you just leave them alone? Ultimately, nobody can tell you what to do with your body. So why would you tell someone else what to do with their body? Bottom line, don't, for the love of God, do not compare breastfeeding to child molestation, urinating in public, saying that it's disgusting, unnatural, because it is natural. Yeah, it's natural. Again, it's what they're meant for. And making a woman feel bad and telling her that it's disgusting, that she needs to go home. Why? Why do it in the first? Why say that to somebody, some stranger, just because you feel like you have to? Are you that entitled to your opinion that you have to go up to some stranger and tell them how to live their life? Do what you feel is best for both you and your child. Don't let other people come in and make you feel terrible about it. People like me that do breastfeed out in public, we're not hurting anybody. We're just feeding our kid. I'm not trying to get people to look at me, and I'm not trying to draw attention to myself. If I was, I'd be flopping my boobs out and parading them everywhere and be like, hey guys, hey, look at me, look at me. I'm attaching a baby to my boob. No, women don't do that. And if they do, I mean, there might be that one person that does do it. They do want attention. Just ignore them. So as always, I hope you have a good day, and I hope this video, helps or informs a little bit, because we do need to start normalizing breast so that women that do want to breastfeed don't have to go through hoops to make everybody happy. We don't have to have this discussion. People not comparing it to things that they shouldn't compare it to. So I'll see you all next time. Bye.